One track that really stood out was a song for Sinead. It was kind of mysterious. Can you tell me more about it?
Yes, the song for Sinead is a track off my second album, which is Modern Rock Guitar Volume 2, Alien Guitar. And it was a track that was improvised on the spot and used a lot of guitar and guitar loops. And it's a special track in a lot of ways. One way is that this was really one of the first tracks that was really mostly emotion. It certainly wasn't about guitar technique. It was trying to capture a certain feeling. And I think it did that very well. You mentioned that it was mysterious, and I think that's right. It was very much mysterious sounding. It never really concludes. It's also where I discovered that I could use guitar swells, where you strum a chord, for example, and then you turn up the volume, right? So strum, turn up the volume, and that way the listener never hears the actual strum, only the sound as it swells, as it gets louder. And very much it sounds like a keyboard and things. And I called it Song for Sinead because I had been listening to Sinead O'Connor.
Denis, are you a big fan of Sinead O'Connor?
Very much a fan of Sinead O'Connor, certainly. I just think her singing, is really fantastic, and very much influenced me. Her music and her voice, which is very guitar-like, in fact. So certainly, I was certainly a fan, and I think that's the one thing that maybe I learned from Sinead O'Connor was putting emotion into your music. And I certainly think that with Song for Sinead is where that began. And I think that Sinead certainly influenced me in that way. Yes, for a very strange reason, Sinead O'Connor had a big influence on me, a big impact on me musically. And I think really this started definitely with a Song for Sinead and the second album. And in fact, it was when I was becoming more introspective in my music, and I think that was an influence from Sinead O'Connor. I think that she's very much one of my favorite musicians and a musical influence. Strange enough, I heard that Jimi Hendrix, in fact, had a big influence, and that was Bob Dylan. The mere mention of his name, and Jimi Hendrix would be, oh, jeez. And I think for every musician, there's a musician like that very influential, and also, so much so that it really changes your musical sound and direction. I think for Jimi Hendrix, it was Bob Dylan. Not that I'm comparing myself to Jimi Hendrix, but certainly I think Sinead O'Connor, for me, was very much that way. Still to this day, as far as conventional recordings go, she's one of the few that I can listen to a track and always be impressed.
And have you spoken to Sinead O'Connor's management?
Yes, I have spoken to Sinead's management, and how that came about is rather interesting. Song for Sinead, was the track on the second CD, And as it turns out, a member of her management actually heard the CD and forwarded it along to Sinead O'Connor. And she heard that track, the song for Sinead. And all of a sudden I get an email from a member of her management, Tom Haxel at the time, of Spirit Media. And so I explained to him, certainly I'm a big fan and certainly would consider playing and recording with Sinead O'Connor.
Now I hear that you almost played for Sinead O'Connor. Is that right?
I almost did play for Sinead O'Connor, in fact. I kept in touch regularly with Tom Haxel, her manager, and he said that they're considering it, but right now, they already had guitarists for the present tour. And unfortunately, as time went on, she retired. And that left me, pretty much without the opportunity, unfortunately. Though I certainly would like to. I think it would work very well. I think she's a great singer. Really great singer. However, I did just recently hear from her new manager as she came out of retirement. And they contacted me via email. And so we'll see. We'll see. It's still a possibility. I certainly told them I was interested in recording and playing with Sinead O'Connor. And really, for me, as I'm a fan of Sinead O'Connor, this was a big deal for me, and I was really thrilled just to be speaking, to her manager. Certainly was really interesting, and to have the possibility that, it would be a miracle, it would be a dream, really, come true if that ever occurred, where I would be playing for Sinead O'Connor. And it all stemmed from that song for Sinead on the second CD. So I actually forwarded then my other CDs to her management, and they were forwarded for Sinead to hear as well. So that was always very exciting, certainly. And to hear from them just recently with her new management still gives me hope. And they said, well, we'll see. So perhaps, it all depends on if I fit the style that she's going into and those kinds of things. It all depends. But if the opportunity arose, I certainly would do it. I think it would work out really well.
By the third CD, you were not only recording, but mixing and mastering the CD by yourself. Is that right?
Yes, my third CD, which is just Modern Rock Guitar Volume 3, I certainly did do everything myself. I recorded it, mixed it, and mastered it. You have to remember with my last album, the second album, I had help mastering it and realized that really to get what I wanted, I really would have to do it myself because mastering is such a subjective thing. And as far as recording it, I did all of that as well, and had gotten much better at mastering, bringing up levels and those kinds of things.
Your third CD seems a little bit more raw. Was this intentional?
Well, I'm glad that you say that because, yes, the third CD was intentionally supposed to be more of a rock CD, more of a stripped-down rock CD. And so saying that it's raw certainly is correct. I think it's very much that way. And it's what I had intended for that CD. I just found that the second CD was, very introspective, but also pretty low-key, certainly. And for my third CD then, I worked very hard to try to get the rock aspect back into the music with the guitar and guitar loops, which isn't a simple thing to do. I do think it turned out well, though, certainly, and I think I did get the rock type of music mixed with the loops, and in fact that's what I was working on during that period. Certainly turned out very well.
Was this one recorded live as well?
And yes, the third CD was recorded live as well. You have to understand, by this time it is the only way that I recorded, was basically turn on the recorder and boom, here we go, and record the track. Nothing was worked out ahead of time, and nothing was added after the recording was done, as far as overdubs or anything like that. Just the looping lent itself so well to that type of thing, of just sitting down and playing and creating these tracks. So certainly it was recorded live, and all the tracks were improvised on the spot. It's the same type of thing I did with the second CD, but it was a given by the third CD. I didn't have to think about it at all as far as the approach goes. Basically, turn on the recorder and start out with an idea, and from there expand on it and take it as far as you can. And that's what I did, which is how I ended up with those tracks. And I think I did that over maybe 2 months, 3 months, something like that, and would go back and listen to the recordings, and I picked the ones that I liked the best, and that seemed to be, or at least sound like, structured songs, even though they were actually total improvisations from them.